Hey, everybody. Mark and I have over 20 years of experience as therapists and as addicts in long-term successful recovery. We know better than anyone what works and what doesn't to break out of porn and sex addiction, heal betrayal trauma, and reclaim your relationship.
And we've poured all of our personal and professional recovery and healing experience into a first-of-its-kind program for addicts, spouses, and couples. We call it Dare to Connect.
At least 4 times every week, we engage with you in real time, in the trenches, giving you the knowledge and the tools to take back your life and relationship.
Whatever else you've done on your journey for healing and recovery, you've never done anything like this.
Mark and I, we've made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. Don't reinvent the wheel.
We all know tomorrow never comes. Look, don't wait one more day to change. Claim your free 2-week trial today at daretoconnectnow.com.
Hey, everybody. I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSC Squared podcast.
Hey, everybody. Mark and Steve here with you on the PBSE podcast. This is episode 155. And we are just days away from the ushering in of the new year.
2023.
2023.
Yes.
And I have a lot of really strong feelings about the new year, especially around New Year's resolutions, which I can't stand. I think there's a formula for failure.
Yes.
There are exceptions to that. There are people who know how to do them properly, but most don't. And so I stopped doing New Year's resolutions many years ago. None of my clients do them. It doesn't mean that we don't have visions for the new year, that we don't have practical steps to achieve that gradually over time, but we don't do big, grandiose New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
So somebody sent us something, a spouse, and she described something that really hit me that would be very much connected to this new year kind of scenario, right? 2023. She's been married 4 years. She recently learned about her husband's pornography sexual addiction and said it was really the most stressful thing she's ever dealt with in her life. And just talks about how our podcast has really been a godsend for her. We appreciate her saying that.
Yeah.
And she's trying to decide if she can live this way. What she means by living this way is she's trying to look towards the future, right? i.e. 2023. And she's wondering if they'll ever be able to, quote, be normal again as a couple. She says she's a very sexual person. And when he started acting out again, before she knew that he was acting out, now that she looks back, there would be times when he would stop touching her and stop making contact with her at all. Now she knows that's when he was acting out.
Yeah.
She says the past 2 years of our marriage, he barely touched me. Now that I know, and I've seen the women he looks at. So apparently she must have seen in pornography history or something that came up in the disclosure process, the kinds of individuals he was looking at. She said, they're nothing like me. What does that mean? They're actually the opposite of me: hair color, ethnicity, etc. Didn't he want that, but settled? Did he want that but settled for me and still wants that? Right? She said, I've heard y'all say it's not about the wife, but he obviously has a type and I'm not it. So now comes her big concern about the future. I love to travel and go to the beach. Will we ever be able to travel again? I'm as the holidays. Oh, they'd like to travel apparently overseas. They might actually be in Europe. I'm not sure, but when they travel during the holidays, a lot of the beaches are topless over in Europe. It's a regular thing.
Yeah.
Will we ever be able to watch non-G-rated movies? Everything has nudity or sexual innuendo or situations. What about barbecue and pool parties in the summer?
Yeah.
So she's asking, what
Mhm.
does our future look like based on this horrible history of the past?
Ah, gosh. What a hard outlook.
Serious? I know. I know. And
That's just so tough.
it's why I titled this podcast, Is 2023 Already Ruined Due to His Destructive Sexual Behaviors All the Other Years?
Yeah. And we can really connect with a spouse, with that kind of perspective. I mean, it can look really bleak, in this process at different times. And really do appreciate the vulnerability of this partner writing in, because there are multiple, I mean, we're kind of hearing multiple things here, right? That are involved, but there's really what it comes down to is just this questioning of, can we ever go back to a place where life is, what I'm hearing, kind of carefree, right? Where it's, where we're not having to worry about these things or check everything and all that all the time. And I think, as I reflect back on, and Mark, we spent some time talking about this before we did this today. I think back with how many times I've sat with a client, a spouse in my office answering this very same question. I think that the answer is multi folded. The first thought that comes to mind is that what is normal?
Yeah, what is
um,
normal?
right. I mean, there is that's because that's such a relative concept for everybody. One of the and that we won't spend much time on that. The second thing that comes to mind is in many ways, I think that the answer to this question in many ways is yes, and we can go back to these things and have it be even better. But that being said, life is a constant evolution and it's a learning process. And part of that recovery process does mean that our quote unquote definition of normal probably will need to change, because where we were operating before, sometimes, well, it involved various things, right? Part of it is what we refer to on the program sometimes as healthy naivete, right? Meaning that we were kind of operating from a carefree place, not really understanding how dangerous many of these situations were, either for our relationship, for the addict, for us as a partner, and in working our own recovery. There were lots of components to it that that we simply just did not. They weren't even on our radar because of we weren't involved in this recovery process like we are. And as we evolve in this process, as we get into recovery, knowledge is powerful and does make a lot of really good things happen, and is the catalyst for progress. But progress often means that knowledge often means with that greater awareness comes, that greater understanding of, wow, there are some things from our past, the way that we did things, that we'll either have to do differently, or maybe some of those may have to go away altogether.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to sit down realistically, first individually, but then together, and be able to say over time, what is healthy for right now. I mean, I'll give you the example I use with most clients. So I'm from that younger video game generation. I was raised on Nintendo and Super Mario and those kinds of things. And so I was and still these days still do play video games on a regular basis, not meaning that it's all the time, but I do have, like, every Friday night usually, and then for a couple of hours early in the week, I'll jump on there with my brother-in-law and some buddies, and it's kind of like my electronic equivalent of like a poker night each week. But there was a time early on in recovery where, and there's a lot of research around this, where addiction I was definitely, long story short, I was a video game addict just as much as I was a porn addict. And there was a real strong crossover between those two. And for years, I tried to give up one without the other. And I couldn't. And there came a point where I finally had to come to the conclusion that while there may be a time in the future where I may be able to have a healthy relationship with video games, that time is not now, and they need to go. And so I got rid of them. In fact, I tried multiple times. I was such an addict, I bought and sold my console like 3 different times, trying to break free. And eventually I did get rid of it. And I kind of took a long-term break from video games. It had to be for, I don't know, it was at least like 3-4 years, maybe longer. I can't remember exactly how long. And I planned on kind of giving it up for the longest time. And my wife was very happy with that. They were really bothering her. But as our relationship continued to evolve, I started to get years and years, and now I'm over 8 years sober. As things start to evolve and our recovery changed, I thought that it might be a good idea to try, and I didn't feel a huge pull towards them like I used to, but maybe those could be a healthy part of my lifestyle again, because there were a lot of elements of healthy connection that came from them, even though there was a lot of toxicity. So we talked about it transparently, thought we'd give it a try, and I really was kind of ambivalent to it. I was like, I could try this, but I could take it or leave it. And those have since been able to re-enter my life in a healthy way. To where now, like I said, they don't run my life. They don't take over. I'm not, bailing on work or not getting things done like I need to, or showing up as a husband because of them. They've been able to take that healthy place in life. So we've now kind of come full circle where thankfully I've been able to have a healthy relationship with that again. But it could have just as easily gone the other way. Right. And I only tell that story to kind of demonstrate what we're talking about right now. Right. And when it comes to this question, whether it's, video games for the addict, or whether it's attending certain movies or certain classes of movies, who knows what the future brings, right? 5 years ago, I did not think I'd be able to have a relationship with video games again. That doesn't mean that I couldn't. And it doesn't mean that that would work for everybody. And who knows, maybe it won't work for me one day, but for now it does. And so there is a value in contemplating those questions and saying, what's the long-term trajectory on this? I guess what I'm trying to say is this is a really roundabout way of introducing the thought that maybe some of those questions don't have answers, and maybe what the focus needs to be on is, what's working for us now, right? Rather than giving into that place of hopelessness, of fortune telling, and getting caught in that really hard place of, like Mark said, is 2023 through the rest of time ruined, right? Do we have to give up everything we've done? Well, maybe 2023 has to look vastly different. But that doesn't mean that 2024, 2025 will look that same way. And it doesn't mean that there won't be continual evolution in a lot of this. Right.
Well, and there's some assumptions about this that we need to state as being very, very important. Because she says, will we ever be able to do any of these things again, as she's looking forward into next year?
Mm-hmm.
Barbecues and pool parties and going to the beach, et cetera, et cetera. And the answer is no, you can never do those things again under the same parameters that you used to do them.
Exactly. Yep. It's a great way to put it.
So the things that we want to make sure everybody understands here, if this new future, right, this new fresh outlook, this fresh start is going to be possible, what's left of the holidays and next year in 2023, you've got to approach it different. So what does that mean? The husband here has got to be in serious recovery. If he ever has a chance of going to the beach again and doing it in a truly, authentically healthy way, he's got to learn how. He's got to work all this out in his support group, and if he's got a therapist, and with other guys who are further down the road than him. So he needs to be actively working his recovery to become the healthiest guy that he can. This coupleship, they should be having check-ins with each other, couples check-ins. They should be engaging regularly with each other in planning things that are coming. So what I would recommend, and by the way, this spouse also, she needs to be in her own healing process.
Absolutely.
Right? With her support group, with other women who are healing from betrayal trauma. She needs to be in a healthy place as well. Because these places she's describing aren't just triggering for her addict husband, they're triggering for her, right? So for both of them, we're going to find that these situations are very disruptive. So if you're both doing your individual work, then you can come together as a couple. And here's what I highly recommend. Don't look at next year all as one big single concern.
Yes.
Barbecues, the beach, the holidays, right? What you're going to want to do is take each one of these things coming up one at a time.
Yes.
Whatever your next thing is that you're concerned about, come together as a coupleship and talk about it. Hey, this vacation's coming up in February. Man, I got to tell you, I'm really feeling concerns about it, and I'm being triggered about it. I'd really like to put our heads together and see if, what we can do to make a plan, to make a vacation plan, and to look at the danger spots and what's going to be hard. And I'll bet that together we can figure this out.
Yeah. No, but the way you're putting that, Mark, I absolutely love that, because not only can we not predict the long-term future, guys, we all ebb and flow in recovery, right? In different ways. If an addict is being authentic with himself, the reality is there will be days where he'll be fine to go watch a PG-13 movie, depending on the movie. There will also be other days where maybe a G-rated movie of one form or fashion might be too much, because like a gentle breeze is going to cause a relapse. That's just the reality of recovery, especially in the early stages. And so it's so much more about, rather than just this smooth trajectory, we do have to anticipate that realistically, there is no way to process everything out, and there's not this exact flow chart, right, for how this is going to go. They're just, that's where, like Mark said, this is where it comes back to that individual collaboration about those issues. And same thing for a spouse, right? This isn't just an addict issue. You may be in a place as a spouse, for example, where maybe you're on the ball with your self-care and recovery, your self-worth, your self-esteem, you're very emotionally secure with yourself, you're doing well, and going to the beach is going to be fine for you, right? You and your husband being there. Maybe you're in a really trusting place. Maybe, but maybe 6 months from now, right? It's the day after a relapse. You're not in that same place. Exact same activity may not be healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just about being real with yourself and with each other of, where are we really at, and how can we be reflective of that in how we approach it today?
Yeah. And just remember, I had a great mentor who taught me, he said, Mark, the past means what it means until it means something different. So we're not locked into the past and all these horrible things that happened with their current interpretation. As we go forward in recovery and healing, as we come together as a coupleship to collaborate, we can find that we can look back at the past with more healthy mindsets. It's not always just going to be gloom and doom and just, horrible anger and resentment and pain when we look back. That can change. And it takes time, and it takes us, we're going to grow more. You're all here listening. If you implement these things, you're going to mature and grow and evolve. And I promise you that the lens through which you see the past is going to also evolve.
Yeah.
So I hope that should give you hope that you're not always going to be stuck in this place, in this interpretation, right? It absolutely evolves.
Yeah, this is one of the many reasons why, 12-step concepts can really pair well with psychology and clinical recovery. This really is a one day at a time process, right? It's so easy to get spun up in different ways, and it's understandable why it happens for addicts or spouses to move into that fortune-telling place, to get to that place to be like, oh my gosh, this might be a reality forever. And is that a possibility? Sure, it's one possibility among many, 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 right? But all we can do is focus on today, making this the best possible process today. All an addict can do is the same thing. If we're doing that every day and we're approaching it from how can we maximize today, then the trajectory is going to move upwards, right? And we're going to be able to make positive momentum and progress in that, and things are going to level out where they need to.
Yep.
So,
and if you really want to get that whole thing that Steve just described, you want to get that on track in your life and in your relationship, you need to come over to Dare to Connect.
Yes, you do.
Because we get into that in depth 4 times every week.
Absolutely.
And let's make 2023 the year that you're envisioning, a year that has a lot of the elements and aspects that you're hoping for.
Where you really beat this thing, where you're really done. Let's be done with this thing. Let's move you forward.
Yeah. Let's get forward. And there's no better place to do that than Dare to Connect.
Absolutely.
So come on over and see us there at daretoconnectnow.com.
That's perfect. Yep, guys, as always, we always love our listeners. We're grateful to be moving into another year. We're coming up next week, I believe, actually, is next week or the week following. I think it's next week. Will be our 3-year anniversary of the podcast going.
Oh, wow.
Every week, which is huge. And we just love all of you listeners and all the countries that we have you listening in. We're grateful to have listeners all over the globe, and just appreciate your patronage and your kind thoughts and words and feedback to us. If you ever want to leave us feedback, or if you would like to just reach out and ask a question that you'd like to have answered, albeit briefly here on the podcast, you're welcome to do so at the contact form. That's at the bottom of the page at pbsepodcast.com. We'd love to address that and get that on a future episode for you.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Sounds great. We'll hope you reign in the new year in an awesome way. And we will next time we connect up with all these listeners, it's going to be 2023.
Man, it's wild. It's cool though. I'm excited.
All right, here we go.
All right, everybody, have a good one.
Everything expressed on the PBSC podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.